In 1987, a janitor at an ordinary American high school lifted a floor tile in a boiler room that hadn't been touched in decades, and found a staircase that wasn't on any blueprint. What he found down there would get the entire wing sealed off for 11 years. Before we go down there with them, hit subscribe right now. Seriously. What's at the bottom of this staircase is one of the strangest stories I've ever covered on this channel, and I don't want you to miss the next one. Okay. Let's go underground. This is the story of a tunnel system that, officially, does not exist. No permit records. No mention in the district's facility plans. And yet, for over half a century, generations of students, teachers, and maintenance staff have sworn it's real, a maze of concrete corridors running beneath the gymnasium, the cafeteria, and out toward the old football field, built for a reason nobody in charge will fully explain. Some say it was a Cold War-era fallout shelter, forgotten the moment the threat faded. Others say it was part of a steam tunnel heating system that got quietly decommissioned. And a smaller, stranger group of former students insist it was something else entirely, something that had nothing to do with keeping people safe, and everything to do with keeping something hidden. Today, we're piecing together every account, every leaked document, and every conflicting story to figure out what's really down there, and why, every time someone gets close to the truth, the story changes. Quick question before we dive in: if your old school had a hidden tunnel system, would you want to know what it was really built for? Drop your answer in the comments, because by the end of this video, I think your answer might change. Let's start with the man who found the staircase. We'll call him Mr. Holloway, since the Real janitor asked to stay anonymous when his story resurfaced years later on a local news blog. Holloway had worked at the school for 9 years by 1987. He knew every closet, every crawlspace, every rattling pipe in that building. So when a routine boiler inspection sent him into a rarely used sub-basement storage room, he wasn't expecting anything unusual, until his foot caught on a floor tile that felt hollow. He described it later as, not loose, but wrong. Like it had been cut and reset by hand instead of poured with the rest of the floor. Curious, he pried it up with a crowbar. Underneath wasn't dirt or pipe conduit, it was a poured concrete staircase, descending at least 15 feet, with old incandescent light fixtures bolted to the wall every few steps. Fixtures that, when he flipped a nearby breaker switch, still worked. Holloway didn't go further that day. He reported it to the school's head custodian, who reported it to the principal, who, according to Holloway, went pale, thanked him, and told him to reseal the tile and never mention it again. He didn't listen. 3 weeks later, he went back down alone. If you're new here, this is the kind of story I dig into every single week: real reports, real records, and the mysteries schools and towns don't want getting out. Subscribe now so you don't miss what Holloway found at the bottom of those stairs. According to the account that eventually circulated, Holloway found himself in a corridor roughly 6 feet wide and just over 7 feet tall, running in a straight line for what he estimated was almost 200 feet before curving. The walls were reinforced concrete, not the crumbling dirt and brick tunnels you'd expect from an old coal delivery system. Every 50 feet or so, there was a heavy steel door, the kind you'd see in a mechanical room, except each one was padlocked from the outside. Behind one partially rusted door, he said he found rows of empty metal shelving, the kind used for bulk storage. Behind another, older water-stained boxes, most disintegrated, though he claimed to see the edge of a filing folder stamped with a government seal he didn't recognize. He never made it to the end of the tunnel. He said the temperature dropped fast near the curve, cold enough that he could see his breath, and that's when he heard a sound he could never fully describe. Not footsteps. Not machinery. Just a low resonant hum, like the whole tunnel itself was breathing. He turned around and left, and he never went back down again. Now here's where it gets interesting, because Holloway's story is only the first of at least 4 separate accounts from different decades, and they don't all agree. So which one do you think is closest to the truth? Stick with me, because next we go to the 1960s, when this tunnel might have actually been built. To understand why a high school might have a hidden tunnel at all, you have to go back to the early 1960s, during the height of Cold War civil defense planning. Across the country, thousands of public buildings, schools, courthouses, post offices, were quietly designated as fallout shelters. Yellow and black shelter signs went up. Basements were stocked with water drums and survival crackers that, decades later, would be found completely untouched. Some school districts went further than just designating an existing basement. Declassified civil defense planning documents from that era describe underground corridor systems meant to connect a school's main shelter area to a secondary exit point, in case the primary stairwell became blocked by debris. In theory, that lines up with what Holloway described: a long corridor, multiple sealed storage rooms, built with reinforced concrete meant to survive stress that ordinary basement walls couldn't. If that's what this tunnel really was, the mystery isn't why does it exist, it's why did the school go to such lengths to hide and reseal it decades later, instead of just converting it into extra storage like practically every other school in America did with their old shelters. That question is what keeps this story alive. We're about halfway through this one, and it's about to take a turn nobody saw coming. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time, because the next section covers the year the tunnel was supposedly sealed for good, and why. Fast forward to 1994. This is where the story stops being about dusty Cold War history and starts getting genuinely unsettling. According to 3 former students who were interviewed years apart for different local retrospectives, a small group of seniors found an unlocked maintenance door near the gymnasium that led to the same tunnel system. Being 17 and invincible, they went in with a couple of flashlights and a camcorder, because it was the 90s, and everything got filmed. The footage, according to those who claimed to have seen it before it disappeared, showed the same long corridor, the same rusted steel doors, except one of them was open. Behind it wasn't storage shelving. It was a room, roughly the size of a small classroom, with what looked like an old cot, a single bare bulb, and, this is the detail that shows up in every retelling, a wall covered in scratched tally marks, hundreds of them, in neat rows. The students said they left immediately. Within 48 hours, according to school board minutes that were only made public through a records request decades later, the district approved emergency funding to permanently secure sublevel access points district-wide, language vague enough to cover almost anything, but specific enough that people noticed the timing. The tunnel entrance was concreted over within the month. So here's the question that nobody has ever answered: if that room really existed, who was it for? Let me know your theory in the comments. I read every single one. When local reporters tried to follow up on the 1994 school board minutes years later, the response was consistent across every district official contacted: no record of any tunnel system exists, the sublevel access referenced in the minutes was standard mechanical infrastructure, and no further comment would be provided. That's usually where a story like this would end, an unsatisfying wall of no comment. But in 2003, a construction crew doing renovations on the school's east wing hit something with an excavator that wasn't on any utility map, a section of reinforced concrete ceiling, hollow underneath. The renovation was paused for 6 days. When it resumed, the district said the crew had discovered and properly filled an abandoned utility conduit. No further details were released, and the excavation records from those 6 days have never been made public. So what do we actually know? We know the tunnel existed as recently as 2003. We know it was deliberately, repeatedly hidden rather than simply forgotten. We know at least one small room inside it doesn't fit the profile of ordinary storage or a fallout shelter. And we know that every time someone gets close to real answers, the explanation offered is just vague enough to end the conversation. Maybe it really was just Cold War infrastructure that got weird stories attached to it over 60 years of teenage rumor and half-remembered camcorder footage. That happens. Old buildings collect legends the way they collect dust. But maybe, and this is the theory that keeps this story circulating decades later, somebody decided a long time ago that certain rooms are easier to hide than to explain. We may never get a straight answer about what's really underneath that school, and honestly, that's the part of this story that sticks with me the most. Not the tunnel. Not the tally marks. The fact that an entire community spent 60 years being told, over and over, that there was nothing to see, while quietly filling in every hole that said otherwise. So I'll leave you with the same question I started with: if your old school had a hidden tunnel, would you actually want to know the truth about what it was for? Or is there such a thing as a mystery that's better left buried? If this story got under your skin, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who love this stuff as much as I do. Subscribe if you haven't, turn on notifications so you don't miss next week's investigation, and drop a comment telling me which part of this story you believe, and which part you don't. And if you want to go even deeper into hidden places hiding in plain sight, I've got another video right here that you need to watch next. Thanks for coming down into the dark with me. I'll see you in the next one.